Today we're working on a Raptor 700 head, and we're installing +2 intake and +2 exhaust valves. This is the Kibble White 40mm intake valve as compared to the stock intake valve. And because the valve is so much bigger, we need to bore the throat area of the port. This is the stock, where the stock valve, this is the stock port, and we're going to bore the throat area to accept the 40mm valve. And after we've enlarged this area, then we'll cut the seat angles. But to begin with, we need to get the bore, or the throat, bored to the right proportion of the outside diameter of the valve. Now, because it's very important to us that the throat area of the port is proportionate to the outside diameter of the valve, we need to precisely machine the throat diameter. If the throat diameter is the right size, then all the valve angles on the valve job will come out perfectly at the right, they'll be the right width, and that's really important for airflow. So we have to make sure when we begin to do this process that we are centering our cutter in the very center of the valve guide, so everything is concentric. So I begin, I've got a coaxial dial indicator set up, and now I need to move the table so that everything is true. I turn the machine on and I can move the table. Make sure the X and the Y are where they need to be. Yeah, that's perfect. Lock the table. And now I'm going to take this out, and I need to put in the boring and facing head. Boring and facing head is a device that goes in the mill that allows me to precisely move this cutting tool out so I can bore the hole to exact size that I'm looking for. Now I've set the cutter up to cut the other side, so I know what the diameter is supposed to be already, so now I'm just going to make it in one pass. Pull it up slow so it leaves a nice finish. And that gives us a valve throat that is exactly the perfect diameter, the exact diameter that we want it to be. It's completely concentric with the valve stem. And so our next step after this, we're not quite ready to cut the valve seats. We're going to port the head now, and we'll come back when we're done porting the head, then we'll come back and recut the valve angles. So now I've done the intake side, now I've got to turn the head and cut the exhaust side. The exhaust side is still not been done. Okay, we've set up now to do the exhaust side. the exhaust side is going to be increased 2 millimeters also. So I've set up the cutter, and now I'm going to adjust the cutter to cut the size. We'll probably do it in a couple of passes. Now I lock the ways down so it doesn't move and chatter. So there's the cutter. The cutter spins around like this and machines out the part. Feed it down slow so it doesn't chatter. I'm taking a pretty good cut, pretty heavy cut. Measure and see if I got the size right. I'm going to take a little bit more. 33 thousandths. You loosen the ways. And then it's got a veneer scale here that I can read. Set up for our cut. Perfect. So now we know that the throat is perfectly round, it's perfectly concentric with the valve stem. If you try and cut that by hand, the airflow is never as good as if it's bored, and it's so that it's bored to the precise side. And that also, we also do quite a bit of testing to develop what valve seat angles we need. And so the width of each angle is extremely critical. And so by machining this out, so it's a known factor, I know that the valve job will come out. I know that I have the throat to the proper size, and each one of these heads will perform exactly the same. They'll flow the same when they're done with when we're done with the porting. So I've got to bore one more of these throats, and then it's time to take it off the mill and port the head.